The truth has arrived.
My name is Jonathan Gilliam, and this is The Experts. And it's great to be back. It is Wednesday, and we are getting closer to the New Year's. And, typically New Year's equals good years or good time in the year. But it's just not the case. This is a weird year, and I've been sitting here, as I always do, trying to figure out what I'm going to talk about tonight. And so I go to Twitter like an idiot and sit there and look at what's going on and go back and forth with people. And, this is going to be a pretty simple show because especially coming off of the last one that I did about Christmas and the meaning of life. And it's very interesting because where we're at right now, the main thing, it's hard to believe that this is still what I'm seeing on Twitter and on these different chat groups people put me in, how ridiculous people are in believing that there's still some kind of master plan. I'm not saying I don't have, hope that the president is able to not pull something off. I don't want him to pull it off. I would love for somehow for the legal challenges against this election that took place in November on the 3rd. It just completely corrupt. I mean, look, you can say whatever you want, but the reality is if half the country feels like there was fraud, then it should be looked at. In good example, in 2016, when we went to the polls and Trump was elected, the left felt extremely slighted, and they felt like the president won because they said that Hillary Clinton got the popular vote. But the reality is our system is set up the way it is with the Electoral College to ensure that the rural areas don't have to capitulate to what the cities feel. And they were smart. The founders were really intelligent feeling that way. Listen, cities are the same as now as they were then. I mean, they might be cleaner and somewhat safer, but the reality is cities are always going to be, or metropolitan areas are always going to be more cosmopolitan. The more cosmopolitan they are, that means the more cultures are going to come there. The more cultures are, the more people that there are. And the government is going to be much stronger and dictatorial in those large locations. And by and large, people are more comfortable with a stronger police force, with more stringent laws and that type of overwatch, because if you didn't have it in cities, and I'm not talking to the extent that the Democrats have, but New York City's been a good example of this. The NYPD, one of the, if not the biggest law enforcement agency in the world. And, they've done a very, very good job up to this point of policing New York City, to the point under Rudy Giuliani where they literally made it one of the safest cities in the world. But it came at a cost. It came at a cost. Living in the city it just does not have the same freedoms that you have if you live in a rural area. You go live in the middle of nowhere in Arkansas or in Arizona, or you go down and live in Florida somewhere where there's just not as many people, and it's going to be different when you go to Phoenix, or you go to Tucson, or you go down to Miami, you go to Tampa, or you go to Little Rock in Arkansas. It's a different thing to live in the cities than it is in the rural areas. The protection is different. You have the availability of police officers there. In the rural areas, you have to protect yourself. Look, I believe that Second Amendment should be strong no matter where you live. I mean, the majority of terrorist attacks that we have had in this country would have been stopped if people were able to carry a gun in the cities. I mean, the majority is. I saw some stupid thing the other day where somebody, some leftist, was saying that. Oh, I know what it was. It was on a book review, my book review, actually. A leftist left a book review and immediately said that the book was, they actually gave me 3 stars, or maybe it was 4 stars, but they immediately jumped into the political aspect of things that I've said on the radio versus what the book was about. And they said, despite what, conservatives believe, the statistics show that more people are killed that own buy the guns that they own than people that aren't. I don't remember. It's some stupid statistics. Not true. The majority of people, there's literally millions and millions of legally owned guns in the United States, and they, for the life of the person that owns them, will never be used to kill another human being. Almost 100% of those guns. Almost 100% of the guns that are carried by people who purchase them legally, who abide by the law, will never be pulled on another human being. It's just a fact. But in rural areas, it's very important because you may not have law enforcement response like you would in a large city. It could literally be an hour in some places before law enforcement gets there. But even in the city, if we had terrorists, or if we had, we do have terrorists in some of these cities, but if we had the ability to carry weapons as a civilian in these cities, I would say the majority of these terrorist attacks would have stopped quickly. In fact, I'm a big proponent of allowing anybody who's been a police officer really for more than 2 to 3 years. I would even go as low as 2 years to be able to carry a weapon as long as they qualify on it. I'd say twice a year, to be able to carry their weapon the rest of their life on planes, in a bar, in banks, in schools. They've proven, look, if you can, listen, I've had all this different law enforcement military experience, and I'm here to tell you that the least of my concerns from new guys or people who've been around there for a long time was that they were going to draw their weapon and shoot me in the back, or that I was going to be in a position where I had to watch an officer kill somebody because they weren't properly trained on when to pull the weapon. I mean, not all police officers are great marksmen, that's for sure. And there is a lot of a lack of training, by and large, throughout law enforcement. And I would say a large portion of the executives in law enforcement are complete buffoons. However, you carry a weapon for 2 years, day in and day out, and you are conditioned and trained in stressful situations on when you should not pull that weapon, you're pretty much qualified to carry that weapon for the rest of your life. It's not something, once you start carrying it and you go over the use of force, of deadly force, over and over again, especially when you're in stressful environments, and you prove that you're not going to pull that weapon just because you're pissed off or you're upset, that's something that stays with you. Qualify with a weapon a couple times a year. And I think if we had done that, or if we did that, but let's say we had done that before, 9/11 would not have happened. The Twin Towers would still be there, and the Islamic attackers would be dead. That's the truth. But because we've allowed leftists to or socialist-minded, communist-minded leftists to get a foothold in this nation, because we have continuously elected rhinos in the conservative party who capitulate to everything that the left says, and it's weakened the American population. And so we now have a great vast majority of people in this country who literally do not know how to take care of themselves. They just literally don't know how. And so we've gone down this political road of learned helplessness, which is another thing that same critic on this one website said about me, is that I used the definition of learned helplessness wrong in the book, A Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, but that's not true. Learned helplessness is literally, there's different types of learned helplessness, but overall, the common factor of it is whether it's the government that's teaching you to be helpless, whether it's a system that's teaching you to be helpless, or a incompetent parent that's teaching you to be helpless by spoiling you. You see, being spoiled versus being told that you're not capable is basically the same thing. And it teaches helplessness in a human being. It's funny. Well, it's not really funny. It's actually kind of sad. I literally look and at the behaviors of the conservatives in this country. And then I look at the Democrats, or the leftists. I don't even call them Democrats anymore. Just look at the leftists. And I have to be honest. And if you don't come up with this same observation and analysis, you should take a step back and look. When I look at the left, they are not helpless. They are truly the useful idiots, but they are not helpless. They have crafted the entire system to work in their favor, where they can do things like burn down buildings, riot, and use excuses of one incident to tear up the entire country. The left has gone down this narcissistic road of justifying, where they justify everything that they do, whether it's voter fraud or tearing up a country. It's justified in their minds because of the narcissistic mindset that they've acquired, and the people where they have learned helplessness, they are not helpless. I know that sounds weird, and in my mind it's clear, but yes, they've learned to be dependent on the government and be comfortable with that. And they're not just comfortable with being dependent on the government, they actually will stand up and fight for the oppressor, because they believe, they've been taught in their heart, and they've been taught through this, through all these years of indoctrination. They believe that they are fighting the good fight, when in reality, they're just comfortable doing what they're told. And the people on the right, this is the sad part about it, is that the right has truly become helpless. They're not empowered. They don't have, listen, the people think, and this is no slight on the president, but they think that the president is their leader, okay? The president is the CEO of the country. He has, where he's failed, I believe where he's failed is that he's unified the nation, the conservative part of the nation anyway. He's unified them in thought, but he's not given them guidance on what they should do, what the Constitution says that they should do. There's been no guidance. I mean, I'll literally say that, and again, I'm critical of the president because I believe he's a leader, and I believe that he's done a tremendous amount of good for this nation. But where he's fallen short, I mean, it's very few things where he's fallen short, but where he's fallen short, it's been incredibly destructive. One of them is with, you empty the toilet of swamp water, you don't fill the toilet back up with swamp water. And that's what's occurred. So it's just been destructive. Everything that you see occurring in the election system and the impeachment process against him, it's all because he failed in the very beginning to get rid of even a small portion of I'm calling it a swamp, even though I'm saying that we shouldn't call it a swamp, the family tree of the deep state in Washington, D.C. He failed. At the same time, the other great failure is that although he's an inspiring individual, although that he speaks in the language that we speak, he has failed. And even though he's united a lot, the conservative people, not the establishment, but he's united the conservative people, even though he has done that, he's given relatively zero guidance to the people. He's gone down the path of, I will save you, and the people have gone down that road with him. And that's unfortunate. It's unfortunate because now he's almost 100% not going. I don't know what people are thinking is going to happen on January 6th. I mean, if there's some great thing that the Republicans in D.C. are doing, there's some legal thing, that's great. But I'm a realist, folks. I'm not a hero worshiper. I'm a realist. And I don't think that there's anything that we can do. In fact, I did a show on here saying that there is no political solution. There's no hope for a political solution. And look, folks, even if the president does get back into office and he's there for another 4 years, the problem is not the president. The problem is the people. On the conservative side, we're not united. It's like a bunch of, you ever taken two magnets that are opposite in their polarization, and you try to put them together and they don't want to go together? That's what it's like. That's what the conservatives are like in this country. They're either following some grifter cult leader, or they are listening and repeating and disseminating absolute conspiracy theories. And they have sat around for 4 years on their couches tweeting and doing nothing. Meanwhile, the left has practically burnt down cities and made it so. I mean, this is unbelievable. I'm watching the news, and we are walking on eggshells in this nation. Not that I would ever use the N-word, but somebody can't do that in their own car. Well, look, people want to say whatever they want in the privacy of their car or their home. There's nothing we should be able to do about that unless they are, planning to tear up something or, commit a terrorist attack, and it's overheard by somebody and they report it. Just because you say something that's offensive, but you're in your own car, we live in a nation where you should be able to do that. Is it right? I mean, racism is never right, and slang isn't right in many cases. But listen, the N-word's thrown around so much by black people that people that grow up around them will use that word freely as well, thinking that they're going to get away with it. And then in this case, I saw in the news where some girl, white girl, used the N-word in her car like 3 years ago. But her friend recorded it. Well, they're no longer friends. So now she brought that out. And that girl that said it in her car in a way that was not racist at all. She was saying it like she could speak that way. And she got, I don't know if she was getting a scholarship or what, but she was going to go to this one college. I think it was UNC. I don't know if that's correct, but she got that invitation pulled from that college because of something that she did in her car 3 years ago. But the left has cultivated that, very carefully cultivated that atmosphere, whereas the right has sat back and done nothing. They complain about it on Twitter or on Facebook, but at the same time, they don't do anything about it. I started this Free Territory Alliance, and I've spoke about that in over a period of time on this podcast. And so I started a Facebook page. So you go to freeterritoryalliance.com, or you can go to ftanation.com, and you take the oath and you sign the document. And then when you input your city, state, and zip code, a little orange dot pops up on the map in the vicinity of where you're at, not specific to your address, but in your city or zip code. It's going to pop up there, just representing that you're in this area. And so I started a Facebook group, and I mean, it's about to get pulled down for two reasons. Because Facebook is this empowered left from Silicon Valley that believes they know They know what you should say and what you shouldn't say, and what you shouldn't say is what they don't want you to say, which is totally opposite of the way our country was set up. There's no freedom of speech on Facebook. You are walking on eggshells unless you're a liberal. They're not going to go after you. So I started this Facebook page, and people have been getting. So I'm the admin guy on there, so I get all the when Facebook pulls something down, I get notified, and it's tons of stuff that I'm getting notified about, and the page is on the verge of being pulled down. Now, some of that stuff is idiotic and should probably not be on there. But like, for instance, people going on and saying that Nashville and the bombing there was a missile strike, and some video from some non-bomb tech guy who's no experience in anything is put this YouTube video together. It's one of those videos, watch this before it gets pulled down. You know it's clickbait when that happens, and the guy has no experience or anything, and he's looking at this video. The same thing with some other group that was saying that the bomb happened over here when it really happened over in this other location on the block, but they were like showing how the blast was coming out here and it was disrupted. It's just so stupid. The analysis is so bad because they have no experience in working with explosives, probably never built any type of explosive in their life. When I was in the SEAL teams, we blew up a lot of stuff. I've built a tremendous amount of explosive devices in my time. And the analysis that I'm seeing from the video, the pictures, the audio, it was a crazy dude, for one, who had been collecting this stuff, and the FBI and the TBI, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, and the local police had all been warned by her girlfriend, or by his girlfriend, and by his attorney that, yes, he liked to build explosives and was doing it in his RV. They never pursued it. They just gave up on it. And then this guy goes and does this. So that's a whole nother story. I may get into that in a minute. But the reality is that on Facebook, on this Facebook page, it's not just because Facebook censors. It's because conservatives come on this page and they act like they should just be able to do whatever they want, and whatever conspiracy comes up, they're going to throw it up there. Whatever they feel about AOC or anybody else, they can use whatever words they want, and they can just say it. And it's like spoiled children. Yes, you should have free speech. Yes, you should not be censored. However, you are, and you are going to be censored, and you don't have free speech on Facebook. How can you not realize that? If you continuously put up stuff that they find offensive, they're going to get rid of you. They're going to get rid of the page. It's not fair. But the way a person who has not gone down the road of learned helplessness would think is that we need to learn how to use this platform because it's so popular and widely used by so many people. Use this platform to build contacts with each other, and then go off to another page like connectzing.com or Parler, or there's several different text applications that you can use to get groups together, and you can go do that. So you make your communications or your contacts on Facebook, and then you go somewhere else and have the conversations that you want. But that's not the way that people that follow these weird conspiracy theories and just have to put this stuff up and have this false hope and the plan, this master plan, and believe in this master plan. And they just, not only do they feel like they have to believe that, they feel like you have to believe it. And if you don't, they're just going to jump all over you. These people out there who think COVID is not a real disease, okay? COVID is a real disease. It's probably man-made. It has some very detrimental effects to some people, especially elderly people. But denying the fact that it exists does nothing. You can be truthful about the way it's been handled terribly. Politicians have used COVID to be intrusive in our life and literally destroy businesses, people's careers, and are responsible for mandates that killed people in elderly clinics. You could focus on that, but people instead want to post stuff and go down this road about how the virus is fake. And they, in fact, are following fake news. And then they're like a spoiled child, insistent that you better believe what they think or else that's it. And that just infuriates me because the way that they act with each other, it's like spoiled children. Remember, learned helplessness isn't just that you don't know how to function in the world and that you've turned yourself over to the government to rely on everything that they tell you should do and for handouts, whatever. That's not the only form of learned helplessness. It's also being spoiled. And for you to think that you know it all and crucifying others who disagree with you and following and just taking whoever tells you what you want to hear at face value is the behavior of a spoiled child. And it's rampant. It's out of control. To the point where, getting back on this whole thing about the empowerment of the conservatives, is that there's been 2 massive rallies in D.C. over the past month. Done nothing. No guidance. There's going to be another rally on January 6th. Nothing is going to come out of that. The majority of people that go there are going to trek there. They're going to go home. And then Joe Biden's going to be the president on January 20th. And they're still, right now, at this point in time, saying the dumbest things that are out there about, oh, they're going to do this or they're going to do that, or you got to trust this or trust that. I don't trust any of it, and I haven't trusted it for years and years and years. As soon as I got out of official service in the FBI, I was able to stop and turn around, and for the first time in 20 years, turn around and look and say, I don't necessarily agree with what those in a position of power that would have been above me in these agencies, I don't necessarily believe what they're saying. I think that there's something up, not necessarily with them, but definitely somewhere along the chain of authority, there are people who are nefarious in nature. And as soon as I made that realization, everything else just kind of started to fall apart. This lie that they create just falls apart. Now, that's an analysis based on my experience and training and the years in service in 4 different agencies. But the majority of the people that are feeding this information out they've never served in anything besides a regular job. And the information that they get, it comes from open source media. And it's no different than if you and I sat down and we got to know each other, and before long, we'd be able to finish each other's sentences, especially if we have common interests. And it's no different than that. All these social media grifters and I call them cult leaders, but it's like they're cult leaders. These people who really go out there and just slam out this fake information and try to get you to trust anonymous sources. Those people have never done a thing in their life that would give them the experience to talk about the things that they talk about. They just haven't. So this Nashville bombing, which I haven't talked about that yet, really did send this into overdrive, it feels like. The closer we get to 2021, the more rapid this fake information comes out, and the bigger piles of crap it becomes. They just say anything, and people, and I guess maybe it's because I'm the admin on this page and I now see this and how fast it is not only created but disseminated by people who love this country, but they go out and disseminate this crap and they lead people astray. People are looking at the wrong threat and they're looking at the wrong answer. Donald Trump is not the answer. It'd be great to have him as CEO of this country again. But it doesn't matter, because if the people won't stand together, it's going to be lost in 4 years anyway. And If we want to make a change, if we want to see the foundation of this country back to where it was and make this country great, the people are the ones who are going to have to do that. Not Donald Trump, not Joe Biden if you're on the left, not anyone, not any rock star or famous person. It's the people. Not any one individual is going to do this. It is the people. And we have gotten so far away from that and so down these crazy rabbit holes. I don't want to use that term, but down these holes that people just, they don't realize we are running out of time. I mean, we're already out of time. I don't want to make today's podcast too long, but I do want to say this about the Tennessee bombing. First of all, after reading the articles that I did today about the reality of the FBI, especially the FBI, having been warned of this again, and this was just a year or two ago, not following up on that, it is really tragic. I mean, that guy was the only person that died, but still, on Christmas Day, for this guy to be able to go down there and do that, when he was obviously buying materials over a period of time, putting these together, and the FBI was warned about this and never followed up on it, as though they didn't have probable cause to look into this. I mean, you could have done some surveillance. You could have, without having even a warrant, been able to surveil him and see what he was buying. If he was going to stores and buying it, I doubt he was ordering this explosive materials online. I mean, maybe there's some materials you can order online, but I would think that the majority of stuff that he had to get in person. I think. Good surveillance, good detective work, could have found out enough, or they could have gone with enough probable cause from talking to his girlfriend and his attorney to be able to go there and get a search warrant to at least look in his RV. And they didn't do that. They didn't do it. There was cameras all over the place. There was odd things going on there, and they didn't follow up on it. It's another screw up by the FBI. And really, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation and the local police department, none of them did it. Lazy police work. But that's what you get when you have a leftist mayor and an idiotic police chief to begin with. The police chief using the same, there's no known threats. It's a safe place to be. There's no known threats in the city of Nashville now since this, there wasn't one the day before on December 24th either, but on December 25th, that certainly blew up. Ridiculous. Now, the other thing is I'm going to try to do another one before New Year's, another podcast. But I want to make sure that I've done a podcast already on the Free Territory Alliance, but I want to explain to everybody a little bit more about what this is all about. You go to freeterritoryalliance.com or you go to ftanation.com, either one, and it'll take you to the website. You can read all about why I'm doing it. You can read all about how what the oath is all about, how most civilians never take an oath. And you sign it, as I said earlier, you put your city, state, and zip code in there, your name. And what's going to happen now is that this is what I'm working on. There's going to be a confirmation email when you sign. And if you've signed already, that email is going to come to you. We're getting that kind of set up now. So you'll get this email. It'll say, welcome, and this is a confirmation, and then it'll have a place for you to sign. Now, if you've already signed, I'm going to ask you to sign again. And then what we're going to do is we're going to expand the website to where you'll click on signatures, and it'll go and it'll show a series of states. You'll pick the state, and it'll show the signatures that are in that state. The map is still going to be populated like it is. It's looking tremendous right now. We changed the colors. They were blue dots. We changed them to red, and then we realized that red is a color that colorblind people can't see very well, so we changed them to orange. So they're orange dots. And it's also good because we're not beholden to, making it look like this is all Republicans or Democrats or whatever. So it's orange. constitutionalists. I really am trying to make it gold, but it's kind of difficult to hit gold and have it where you can actually see it on that website. So you'll go to this thing where it says signatures. You'll click on it. It's going to drop down, and you'll be able to click on the states and see the signatures of the people who signed. Most signatures, I'm not really worried about security reasons because most signatures are not really legible, especially when they're done on a computer or a phone. And your name is not going to be put up there. Again, like I said before, that name goes away and it just becomes a dot on the map. So you're going to be able to look at and see how many signatures there are there in your state. And then I'm going to try to set up something where when you click on the state, it'll also have not only signatures, but a list of groups that they can, again, we're fixing this, where they can contact me, let me know that they have a group in this area, and you can join their group. Or they have a group on Facebook. You can join that group. So all these are things that I'm putting together, and it takes time because it's Stacy who runs the website. She is diligently working on these things, and I'm diligently coming up with different ideas. And Stacy is she has amazing work ethic. She's done an incredible job, and it's Blue Struck Graphics and Marketing Incorporated, and she's done an incredible job on this. So, and actually her brother Aaron is the cartographer who's been working on the map. So they've dedicated themselves. Brian Gosher in the reading, you can see on there where I read the Free Territory Alliance document that I drafted, and I read it. And Brian Gosher, who's done all the music for me throughout the years on my show, he literally wrote the music for this reading, and it's pretty powerful if you haven't read it. One of the people on LinkedIn that listened to it said he wrote a response to it and said, "Every time I hear your voice, I want to run through a brick wall." And so I wrote him back. I was like, "You mean brick wall because you can't stand my voice, or brick wall because you're pumped up?" He said, "No, because I'm motivated." So that was good. But the other thing that's going to happen with this, okay, not only are we going to start showing that there's groups in your area that you can get in touch with, and this is down the road. I'm not exactly sure how we're going to do this or when this is going to occur, but this is what the plan is. But also, I have your emails, so I'll be able to send out emails to let you know that this is going on in this area, or or even say, hey, if you live in the Little Rock area in Arkansas, that there's these groups, and so I'll be able to do these types of things. But also, I am trying to work with different companies that provide gear that are, for tactical gear or med kits or these different types of things. I mean, if there's a survivalist or somebody who wants to put out information, then I'm going to put some of this stuff out on the emails, but also build a store where you can go to and look at this stuff. And the purpose of this is that all these people, as I travel around the country, they're buying massive amounts of guns. Some people have like 5 to 10 guns. They're buying thousands of rounds of ammunition, but they have no gear. They have no plan. They have no area that they can go to when the things happen. They have no way of no radios to get in touch with each other in case something bad happens, so that they can have rally points. They have none of that stuff. So we're going to be able to put this stuff up on a store and try to get people on one page and uniformed in a uniform fashion. Not give them uniforms, but where they have the same gear. If you buy a 3-day pack and you buy a med kit, then your med kit will go in the same place as everybody else's. That way, if you're ever in a predicament, whether it be socialism taking over or you have a flood in your area and you have your backpack on and somebody runs up there and you're trying to get a tourniquet or something, they'll know exactly where to go into your backpack for that med kit. So this is the whole process of coming up with this, and also sharing gear. If you are not in the fight and you have the same gear as these people, then you may be able to share that gear. But these are different things that I'm trying to come up with to put on the website to unify the people and give them a plan, to give them a plan of action and awareness and uniformity, which, again, this isn't a criticize Donald Trump show, but these are things that should have been put out over the past 4 years to get people on one page. And it just didn't happen. It was left to social media to do that, and social media is full of grifters and idiots who don't do anything. And so everybody's tried to solve this problem from their couch, and that just has not worked. It's failed miserably. Except for the left. They go out and actually do action. They stand up for each other. They'll go on your page when they're not even associated with you, and they'll try to condemn you and dominate you. You can go into your workplace, and if you put the wrong thing on the television in the lounge, they'll try to get you fired. Right? They're that dominant. They're full of action. Even though it's crappy, dominating leftist action, the fact is, on the right, we just have not taken any action. We've done nothing. And we're in the position we're in because of that. I mean, listen, I've tried to do things. Every radio show I've ever hosted, I've tried to put this information out. I try not to do speeches where I get up and just pump myself up. I do speeches to try to teach people about what's happening so they can go out and make a difference in their life. I try to share have shared the gospel and the word of Jesus. I just don't know if people are receptive to that. They would rather hear somebody get on stage and literally talk about themselves for 15, 20 minutes. When I went to D.C. a couple of weeks ago, they had like 5 stages. They're bleeding all over each other. They were not bleeding literally, but the sound was bleeding all over each other. And each stage was ran by grifters that are like the professional grift of 2020. And one stage had 40 speakers on it. And I sat there and listened for a while, and it was the same thing over and over and over. Let's pray, and get up here. And the prayer was, let's, pray for Donald Trump and, for the future of the country. There's no guidance. There was no directly talking to God about specific things, help these people be enlightened. And, there wasn't no speakers that got up there and talked about, let's talk about med kits. Let's talk about uniformity. Let's talk about radio. They didn't do any of that stuff. It was all just flag waving and this and that and President Trump, and then everybody went home and nothing came of it. And now just a couple of weeks afterwards, they're going to have another one on January 6th. I quite frankly don't know what anybody expects to come out of that. If you're showing up in D.C. with false hope, and because you think, well, this is a great thing for us to stand together, and listen, you better stop for a second and realize the position that we're in right now. It is bad. And you might want to reconsider wasting the time going to D.C. and instead going on my website or social media, or asking the question, what radios do we get, and getting some radios, some handheld ham radios, getting a med kit, getting food that is that you can store for a while on your shelf. You don't know what's going to happen January 20th. And listen, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. But the honest goodness is, like I said in one of my tweets tonight, when the liberal comes up to me and says, now you know how we felt in 2016, I say, no, I don't know how you felt. Because President Trump and all the conservatives that voted for him, our goal was to solidify the foundation of this nation and make it what it was supposed to be. We didn't want to change things. That wasn't the thing. That wasn't the gist of President Trump getting elected. It was to bring the entire nation back to a foundational footing, which is nothing like this where we are now. The people that have been elected now, all they want to do is change the nation, change things in the Supreme Court, get the leftists. And listen, if they are able to do this and they win Georgia, they're going to pack the Supreme Court with leftist judges. And it is just, look, you think the Republican Party I'm talking about the establishment in the Republican Party. There are some incredible local politicians that are a part of the Republican Party, people who vote Republican that are amazing, the majority of them. But let's be honest, the rhinos in the most powerful positions in the Republican Party are destroying conservatism, and they're destroying any hope that we may have of standing up against the leftists because they just appease. That's all they do. Appease, appease, appease. So I'm not real sure that people understand the veracity and the speed at which socialism rolls into a nation once they get a footing. But if you look at what's happened in the past 12 months, you need to stop and realize that all this craziness that's occurred in the past 12 months has happened under one of the most conservative presidents we've ever had, with a conservative, quote-unquote conservative Senate, and more conservative judges in the Supreme Court than we've had in years. And still, the speed and veracity at which socialism has emerged is neck-breaking speed. So imagine what it's going to be like after January 20th if we lose the Senate. Things are going to happen faster than you can even. You just cannot contemplate exactly how fast this is going to happen. Now, what I want you to take with you out of this episode of The Experts is that I want you to sit back and think about what's occurred over the past year. We have slid so far to socialism over the past year at neck-breaking speed. All the while, we've had a conservative president, one of the most conservative presidents in history, a Republican Senate, and more conservative judges on the Supreme Court than we've had in many, many years. Can you imagine, especially if we lose the Senate, what 2021 is going to be like? It is time for conservatives to stand together. I'm Jonathan Gilliam. This is The Experts. The truth has arrived. Peace, and I'm out of here.